Hi, everyone. Phil, can you believe how much excitement we are seeing in this live chat right now?
I am blown away, and I'm happy to see it because come on, it's a new Survivor season. Let's go.
Let's do this. It feels like just yesterday we were like just had each other to talk to, but I just want to welcome Jay. Great to see you. Minnows, always
Yes.
good. Amy, so great to see you. Thank you for joining Spark or Snuff, and thank you, Minnows, as well. We are so ready to talk to all of you about this episode today. Now, before I go any further, I should disclose we did plan on having Jam Jam here with us, but something did come up, so Jam Jam had to step away. We do hope to reschedule with him sometime in the future. But today, you got Phil and I. Ollie is also not in office right now, but we're going to get started. We're going to talk about Survivor 47. I mean, Phil, how was your viewing experience of this episode?
Matt, look, I'm going to be honest. This was the first time in 10 years that I missed the premiere live. I had a very, very busy work schedule, but I made it my first order of business that any chunk of time I had that I was going to watch the premiere, and I'm so happy I did. I had a great time, and I thought that it was a killer premiere. How about you?
So much fun. I went to Bryson One Present, and that was such a great experience. It's so much fun watching it with a watch party. I will say I definitely had to rewatch it because there was a lot of people there. There was a lot of excitement. There was a lot of enthusiasm, but it was really cool to watch it with a group. So I highly encourage if you all of you if you have an opportunity, if Bryson One Present shows up to your city, I highly recommend you go. Or if there is another watch party, I highly recommend watching it with a bunch of fans. But it was a lot of fun. Have you ever been to one of those, Phil?
I haven't. And I will say I really want to find a time and a place to make it happen because they always look so fun. I feel like I'm missing out.
It's a good time. And Georgette, also great to see you in the chat. Thank you for joining Spark or Snuff as well. It was a really fun episode. We were so happy to have Shannon with us. But Phil, why don't we get right into it? Let's talk about this, I thought, incredible premiere episode. And I think what
Oh yeah.
really stood out to me was this shot of Genevieve just taking it all in on the beach. They first pull up, they first get there, and this just made me so happy to see because I feel like I would have the same reaction, just taking it all in.
I gotta be honest. I think that in like so many different aspects throughout this first episode, you saw them taking big swings on their cinematography. I
Yes.
mean, we will get to it, but that first challenge when beaming out the gate, you have a sort of like track follow shot. I was like, Survivor, y'all are hitting it hard this season, and it really always is exciting to see Survivor doing new things.
Yeah, it was really cool. That shot in particular was amazing. But I
Oh
have to
yeah.
say, from a storytelling perspective, I got some red flags right off the bat when,
Mm.
let's see, Jeff talked to one person from each tribe except for, what is this tribe called? I totally Gata.
Gotcha.
Gata. He spoke to two people. He spoke to Andy and he spoke to
Mhm.
John. And this, okay, here's the other thing. Everyone, be aware. Be aware. I'm not going to spoil anything. However, I have been made aware that some commercials have spoiled some things. So be
Mm.
careful out there. And please, we always ask you not to bring spoilers into this zone because it ruins the experience for everyone. But one of the commercials did spoil who won immunity this episode, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the tribe has posted. But I didn't know which tribe was going to tribal council, but this was an instant red flag to me.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I mean, obviously, the days of edit reading, like hardcore edit reading, watch a first episode and feel like you know who's going to win. I do feel like those days are mostly behind us because Survivor has done such a good job of putting more nuanced editing
Yeah.
in terms of them sort of like, ex- ex- being able to expect what fans are going to think and subverting that. However, I did sort of have a feeling that they might be going to tribal because of this as well, but I think you would need a really keen eye.
Well, let's also face it, Phil. They are wearing yellow, which is
This is true. That's the new curse. It's the new
honestly,
curse.
if you're yellow or if you're wearing purple, like, sorry, you're not. It's going to be very tough for you to get to merge.
And we'll get to it, but I genuinely think that the Blue Tribe on this season, in my opinion, they look to be the strongest. I think they look to be the ones that are going to win out until merge. And I don't know if it's been every single season, but I know that Blue Tribes in the new era have been doing very, very well. So again, coincidence, set up, who knows? Probably coincidence, but who knows? Yeah,
I mean, it is wild to think like, how does this keep happening? Right. Well, we'll see. We'll
right.
see. Actually, let's go to the first challenge because they Gotcha did really well. They won, right? Like, let's just get to it. They won this challenge, but I think this might be my favorite initial earn your tribe materials challenge. Like, I loved the
Ever,
scope of
ever,
this. I think
ever, or
so.
new era?
New era.
Wow.
Sorry. Yes, new era.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, I love this challenge. I really, really like this challenge. I will say I had a sort of like a funny moment. I think it was Sam that was talking about the scale of the challenge, just walking in and being like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I just saw how big it was, and you never would have been able to imagine. And in my head at first, I was like, it looks just about as big as every other challenge. I don't know what makes this that big, but I do think that once we got into the challenge and we saw that they were racing through the jungle and it extended past this area,
Yeah.
I was blown away, and I said, "Wow, this really does feel like a major step up in scale for a first challenge."
Was this the shot you were talking about?
That is the exact shot I was talking about, Matthew. Yes, I
Can we
loved it.
talk
I was like, "Look at this."
How did they pull this off? I don't understand. One, it's amazing, but I'm thinking
Right.
like at first I thought, okay, was this what do they call the dream team? Was this a dream
Hmm.
team member that because I couldn't imagine how they have a camera operator running behind this person in real time as the challenge is unfolding because I could see that tripping people up who are running behind, but like
Right.
I I, I don't
I,
care if it was magic.
Right. To be fair, I had the same thought where I said, like if someone was really on his tail, it might have put him a half second behind. But I do think that for the sake of having this awesome cinematic shot that feels really brand new and inspired, I do think that I think it's worth it. I mean, let's face it. I don't think that it was a real serious deterrent to anyone, and I hope that they had a plan in place where they were like, okay, if someone's out in front really early, let's take the shot on. If not, let's can it, and they got the opportunity to make it happen.
I think
I
that's
think it
really
was
cool if it
awesome.
was a game time decision.
Right, right.
And I will say, I think what was really fun about this shot in particular too was it felt like one of those like VR experiences where you're like
Yes,
strapped in and like going along for the ride. It just felt so
yes.
cool. Oh, Amy, you think it was drones? Drones have been a real game changer in terms of filming. You know what's funny, Amy? I also had this thought, and I don't know if it was a drone. It could be. It could be. I'm not denying this. I'd be very surprised if it was, but the movement of it, I also agree. I was like, yeah, yeah, it could be. But they are.
Definitely,
They're getting
definitely.
really good.
And for what it's worth, we will, we'll get to many things. I mean, even them sort of landing in a spot to have their initial mat chat with Jeff and then Jeff walking them to the challenge area. I really, really liked it. I think it really like brought us as the viewer on a journey. And I'm excited to get into the episode.
Yeah.
So much to talk about.
It definitely raised the stakes, and then we get these, like, really ginormous puzzle pieces, and
Right.
I think that this tribe made it back first with their someone in chat correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think that blue tribe made it back with the pieces first and got a head start on it. But there
Yes. And what I please.
no, I was gonna say, but they very quickly got overshadowed.
Yes. I mean, what I was going to say is this points to, I mean, one of the greatest aspects of Survivor challenges, the puzzle being the great equalizer,
Mm,
right? You can get out in front in an early game, early in a game, and think that you have it locked up, but you absolutely do not. And that's what happened here. I mean, ultimately, the yellow tribe was the last tribe to get back with their puzzle pieces. And they were actually last by quite a bit, and they were the first ones to get the puzzle done. So it really shows, Jeff says it all the time: dig deep, don't give up, and this was a great display of that.
and I feel like I spoke too soon because when I saw this moment, I was like, "The curse is broken! Like, they're gonna dominate the
Right.
challenges, like, go Yellow Tribe." I was all for it, and it's funny because 'cause we'll talk about it more as we get, deeper into the episode, but a lot of them had that same sentiment too, where they're like, "Oh, we started off on such a great foot." But, I mean, it is regardless of what ended up happening, it is great that they earned those materials right away, that toolkit.
Definitely, and you're right. I recall. I don't remember who exactly said it, but I recall someone saying, "Oh, it feels good to be on the winning team, the winning tribe." And
Yeah.
us looking back at that quote, knowing what happens through the rest of the episode, it is kind of funny because they did think that they were out of hot water, but they were just merely getting started.
I
Can I ask you
know.
a question, Matthew?
Please.
What do you feel about the mud being so present in a lot of these premieres? I think that this is something that has sort of started in the new era. There is usually like a big mud aspect to the first challenge, and I've actually, I've been poking around on the internet in the hours that I've had between watching the episode and now, and I've heard people saying that they feel like it's a great symbolism for entering Survivor
Oh.
because it is almost birthing you into this sort of it's going to be a crawl through the dirt type game. You know what I mean? You're getting dirty quick. What do you think about that?
Well, I like that symbolism. Like, I do. I think that's actually
Right.
it's like an initiation of some sort. What I also think might be the case, if I put on my creative producer helmet for something like this, I would
Hmm.
say, well, we're gonna have these people doing, oh, what are they called? Why can't I think of the talking heads?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're gonna be doing their talking heads. Let's just get them dirty right from the start so that if we ever need to, for
Mm,
continuity purposes, splice things up, like, they're it'll be less apparent if we have to do that. I also think that with the game being 26 days, it's like, let's get them dirty. Let's expedite this. Come on, let's just get them to a
right.
point where they're already exhausted and struggling, and we see that during this challenge, but also in the immunity challenge. Confessionals. Thank you,
Yes.
Minnows.
Also, Minnows, I definitely hear you on not being able to recognize people. I have also heard that being the one sort of the thing that people don't love about the mud challenges. It's like, hey, we're just meeting these people. We don't know who they are. Let us get a chance to see those pretty faces, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're right though. It has become like it's not a first episode of Survivor without mud. That's what it is now. But
Hmm.
they end up winning. I didn't get the picture of this, but so Yellow Tribe, Gata, they get their supplies, but now the other two tribes, Red and Blue, have to send one person from each of their tribes with no information. I don't have photos of this, but with no information about what's to come, and they just got to go for it. And it's TK from Blue and Asia from Red. Phil, was there anything about the selection process that stuck out to you?
Um, yeah, I think that a couple things. I mean, first of all, you're sending one representative from each tribe. I feel like
How'd you get muted?
I have no clue what happened there. Um, but there are people that are absolutely not going to want to go. There are people that are, that only want to go. And so I think that that was fun. That I think that we got a little bit of both in this premiere, where one tribe, uh, one tribe, they went to rock paper scissors. They had that many
Yeah, yeah.
people that really wanted to be a part of this experience. And I can't remember exactly how they came to Asia on the other tribe, but it
I
seemed
think
like
she
it was
volunteered.
she volunteered. There we
I
go.
think
I think
so.
it was, it definitely seemed like less of a struggle.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, would you do it? Would you raise your hand for something like this? It's completely unknown at this point.
I absolutely would not,
Yeah.
Matthew. I absolutely would not. And I think that it's easy to think that I might because, I am definitely like a very sort of like, I will take a risk sort of type of individual, but I just think it's too early. It's way too early.
Right, and someone
What
even
about
pointed
you?
it out. Yeah, yeah. No,
What about you?
well, I was gonna say same, because someone even pointed it out in the episode. That is valuable time where 5 other people are getting to know each other, they're building the camp, and that is a lot of time. Well, you don't know right away, but you can assume it's gonna be a lot of time where you are off doing a separate activity. Yes, you may come back with tribe supplies and be seen as this sort of hero for the tribe, but we know from Sweat and Savvy that it is not always the case that both tribes have the same chance of earning the supplies. Like in this case, it was one or the other. So there's always that risk too of I may not come back with anything, and then I'm really that one person on the outs.
Yeah, and I think there's sort of like a double jeopardy aspect to it because there is a world where you go on this journey, this adventure, you get the thing that you are supposed to be playing for, and you come back and your tribe is still not accepting of what your story is and what you're bringing back
That
because they
too.
believe that there might have been something additional. And I think it's at the very least, even if people don't actually think that, I think it's so easy to put that out into the world and have it be a very very believable possibility of what this person might have gone through.
Yeah, yeah, and, like, who knows? There might have been an advantage there. We don't know. And oh, Minos, was it Rome who that's interesting. That's interesting that Rome of all people that it foreshadowed what happens later in the episode with Rome's relationship with the Red Tribe. But I really liked this Sweat or Savvy alternative. I don't have any shots of the jungle and them searching for the keys, but this was really cool. I thought this was a really good change up. I don't know how you felt, Phil.
I was a huge fan of it as well. I think that there's just more action in a head-to-head race, and I think that when it's two people racing against a stopwatch, essentially in Sweater Savvy, that's a little bit less exciting.
Yeah.
I also think that this is fun that it was so close. There obviously was a way that this could have come across less exciting if they have the same challenge and TK or Asia ends up being so far and ahead in front of the other person that they're competing against. This ended up coming down to that last key where, sure, TK got there earlier, but Asia met him there before he had the key in his hand. Yeah, and honestly, props to Asia for actually reaching for this sort of buoy that they were both trying to get while it was in his arms. I think that there are a lot of people that would just have looked and been like, okay, well, he's got it. And she definitely tried to do a little reach there, and I admire that.
What was so great about this moment was I felt like in real time, I was seeing Asia make the decision to do it. It's
Yes.
like in real time, I saw her processing, like, I cannot go back to that camp and say that I did not even try to grab it from him when I had a chance to. So I loved that Asia just took this opportunity and said, you know what? It can't hurt. It really cannot hurt at this point. Amy said that this was way better than last season's Sweat or Savvy. No smashing of an hourglass. Maybe that's why they did it. They said we're not going to clean up glass this time. We can't do it.
Well, frankly, Jelinski broke the only hourglass in on Fiji, so
Really?
it's done. They had to.
Wow, I didn't know they only had one. That's a fun some piece of
I mean,
information I
look,
did not know.
just a theory, just a theory.
Oh, okay, got it, got it, got it. I thought it was confirmation. But Asia's storyline this episode was really cool to watch because I think I saw this confirmed. It was only briefly, so someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Asia may have had the most amount of confessionals in this episode, which is a really
Hmm.
interesting fact to me. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But no matter what, Asia was definitely very present in the edit, and I specifically like how we saw her like she was very concerned that after losing this challenge, she would be odd one out. She said, I know from being a podcaster and from talking about these things, I know that if you don't come back to your tribe with those materials, you are going to be on the outs. So it was really interesting to see her start to form these connections. And even before she got back, we saw Teeny tell, I believe, Genevieve that Teeny was like, hey, Genevieve and Kishan, I feel really good with you two. I want to bring in Asia as number 4. And I was like, this is really interesting that even while Asia was away, Teeny was like, hey, I can see an opportunity with this person who's not here yet.
And I was thinking about that. I said, I think this might be a first of its kind. I don't know if we have seen someone go off in this sort of, you know, frankly, right after the first meeting with their tribe and have someone that has like a true incentive to protect them.
Yeah.
So, kudos to the fact that Teeny recognized her from Rob as a podcast and decided to essentially saddle up with her from the very beginning. I honestly think that this was like really, really cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I really like how Teeny approached this conversation because it could go one of two ways. If you say I know who you are and I'm a big fan, it could go one of two ways. It could be, oh no, I got to get this person out before they share my secret that I'm a Survivor expert, essentially. But I like that Teeny was like, I gain nothing from exposing this. I only have stuff to gain from working with you. And I just thought it was, I liked seeing Teeny navigate this conversation.
Definitely. And, I'm sure you were paying attention yourself as a Survivor podcaster, but in preseason coverage, Teeny has said on numerous occasions, I can handle the social of it all. I've always been very social. I'm an extrovert. I get along. However, the strategy of it all, that's not really my forte. And from what I know about Asia, being a podcaster of Survivor, she is very tapped into the strategy of it all. And so I think that these two are actually a really, really good natural pairing.
It felt very organic. Like it feels like that as long as they have the opportunity to keep working with each other, as long as it benefits both of their games, this feels I feel very good about this. Watching me like eat my words next episode, who knows? But we'll see.
Well, let me tell you, Matt, if you're eating your words, I'll be eating my words too, much like you ate the Applebee's I bought for you last season.
Yep.
Because I also think that these two are going to go really far. That's really, really what I think. So I'm excited to see what ends up happening with these two. But I do think that they are what I can say objectively right now. I think they're both great for each other's games.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see if that manifests into them getting far into the game together. That would be great. I would love to see it.
And then it seems like people are focused on two things when it comes to this first episode. People are focused on forming those connections. People are also focused on where some of these advantages at. And first of all, I just want to say I am a Rome fan. I love Rome so much. And it was so Rome continued to entertain me this entire episode.
That makes two of us. I am a Rome fan. I'm here for it. There's just something so magnetic about him. I think that watching him, create a little bit of alienation within himself and the rest of his tribe, it's interesting because I think that he still thinks that he's doing so well. He remarked in a confessional that he's like, oh, well, I get along with my tribe, so it's all good. And, I'm a gamer. I love playing Overwatch. I follow the esports world. He just seems to me to be just, a nerdy, very excitable guy to be out there. And he wants to do it all. And so I hope that this is not a quick path to Ponderosa for Rome here, because I really think that he has a lot to give, and he's been so entertaining. And I don't know. I'm a Rome stan. I'm here for him. I will say,
yeah.
If I can say, Matthew, shades of JD.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
You're with me here?
Yeah. I can see that comparison. I thought Rome had really good instincts. I thought he had good instincts, but then lacked the execution at some points. For example, we saw Gabe find the Beware advantage on the blue tribe, go instantly trying to get the key, go instantly trying to do this, and got caught by TK. But Rome is like, okay, this clue is telling me to go straight to the path and dig this thing up. I know that people are going to see me, so I'm going to wait till night or the next morning. Oh, this is the wrong order. Night or the next morning to go and I mean, we could talk about Gabe since we kind of brought Gabe up to go and find this thing. So I thought the two different approaches to this were very interesting, and we saw Gabe had some close calls when it came to his idol search.
Gabe is another one. I am very interested in how long for this game Gabe truly is. I can see him being a flame out. I can also see him being like a Danny type, a Q type. One of the types where, he is so active in the game and he is an activator for others, but he himself is playing so sloppy. And it was actually pretty fun to see, because to the same point, look, I'm going to say Gabe, I think, had good instincts. Him going up to Sue
Yeah.
early on, solidifying that pairing, even when he was caught by TK, was his lie the worst lie in the world? No. I
No.
think that there could have been worse lies. I think that it is actually I think that it is a good call on TK to be able to sniff that out more so than it was a bad attempt from Gabe. But all this said, I think that they are creating a very complex character in Gabe. I mean, him dropping the box, we hear that people hear it, but there has been objectively less consequence for him than we've seen with Rome. I think that Rome is getting a lot more consequence because everyone is sort of, there we go. Perfect. Thank you for getting the slide. Everyone on that tribe has come together to understand that Rome has put himself on the outs and is searching. I think that in Gabe's case, people are finding it out on their own, and it's not really being clicked together between the 5 individuals. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Because you mentioned TK and the whole situation about TK finding Gabe finding the key. Like, did we see TK do anything with that information? Not that I recall.
No.
Yeah, I think he just pocketed it.
Mm-hmm. And
But
even him telling Sue, right? We see that Sue tries to be a lookout. She doesn't sell him out, but well, that's the thing. Like, we haven't seen much consequence, but really, TK all but knows. You would imagine that he could have something. He saw him getting the key. Sue literally knows that he must have something, and I think that there are others on his tribe that are. Hi, Nug. You want to talk about Survivor 2? There are others on his tribe that are very close to understanding that he's messing around with something. There's something that's not clicking. You know what I mean? Or there is something that is clinking and clanking and rolling down a hill that is the box that has his idol. And it seems like everyone heard that, but not enough for them to get up and go check. It's like strange. They're so close, but they're not there yet. You know?
listen, I have that image too, and I'm debating if I should jump to it. But just to stick to the order, like, I'm so excited to talk about that moment because Sue also had a really funny reaction to it, in my opinion. But taking it back real quick to this sequence with Rome, first of all, I knew what Survivor was doing. They always, they tend to edit it this way in terms of, oh, the group is going to go check on the person searching for the idol. Will they catch them? And like, listen, Rome gets caught like 30 times. He gets caught so many times, but still I love him because he's like, I think I'm okay. But just having this interaction between everyone and then this gorgeous shot of Rome looking like Veruca Salt falling down the garbage chute is like so funny. I love that they did this, but I also hate that they did this because I'm like, they better replace that water.
Look, I think that this whole Rome sequence was rich. I mean, I think this whole sequence was hilarious. Thank you, Minnows. Hello, Mr. Gamer, coming from Asia, seeing him in there. Let me tell you, I thought it was going to be worse, if I'm being honest. I thought that they were going to see the hidden message on the log. I really did.
Which I thought that was really cool, but I also was like, how are you going to hide this?
I really thought it might happen. And again, yes, Rome, like, body halfway into this well. It is like one of the funniest shots. And look, I want to ask you because I don't think I have an answer.
Yeah.
If someone rolls up on you and you just got the idol from the well, you saw his hair was still wet. He half of his body is wet up until up his arm. He's by the only source of water for that to have been the case would have been the well. Like, he's going to come across like an absolute mess if he were to turn around and say something to them. Like, if you saw them coming, like, what do you do? Because walking away is suspect as all heck.
Which it was.
But also standing there and talking to them, half soaking wet, would have also been strange. Like, what do you do?
I mean, it's not a great situation for Rome. I'll just say that. There is no correct answer in this because it's just not great. But I will say, like, I think my first instinct, honestly, this is going to sound so ridiculous, would be like, I dropped the ladle. Oh,
okay.
No. Like, I had to get it back out. But it's better than walking away, in my opinion.
Matthew, I give you kudos. I think that is better than both of my options, which would be to talk to them or to just do what he did and turn around. So kudos. I think that is at least a viable option.
Thank you. Right? It's like it's leaving room for plausibility, right? Like I think when we talk about Gabe before, where Gabe was like he told TK a lie, but it wasn't the like you said, Phil, it wasn't the most outlandish, ridiculous it is believable. It is something that very well could happen. But I feel like
Mhm.
to not I feel like Rome left more room for speculation than he intended to.
Yes. And I think that I don't think that looked very good. And I don't think that's a hot take. The fact that everyone on your tribe is traveling over together to hopefully catch you doing something sketchy because they think that might be the case, and then that's exactly what happens. That is,
I I feel
that's a
like
bit of a disaster.
it is, and I feel like Rome would have benefited if maybe he had one person, kind of like how Sue was to Gabe, like one
Yes.
person looking out for him. If he had that, and earlier in the episode, he like tries forming a relationship with Genevieve, and what I got from that is let me check my notes in detail. I forgot what Genevieve said exactly about Gabe, exactly about Rome, but I think like Rome was really like Genevieve, and I think Genevieve really liked Rome, but I just wish that he, like, kind of entrusted her a little bit more. I feel like he just needed that one extra person.
Yes, I recall Genevieve saying that she really, really liked his energy. She felt like he had really, really good energy. And it's funny, I mean, to your point, like sometimes getting like letting someone get a good taste of you and then leaving it there is the best thing to do. I think that
Mhm.
Rome was doing a lot and feeling like he had to protect himself so much, but the truth is, I think if he did a whole lot less on his own in terms of idol finding, I think that Genevieve likely would have taken her good opinion of Rome to the rest of the tribe and done enough work
Yes.
for. I mean, you saw that she started to do that. She went to Teeny and said, "Hey, I really like Rome. You really like, Kishan. Let's get us four together." And then I think that he sort of started to spook others. And then Genevieve starts to believe, I'm sure, that like, hey, I don't want to go down with a sinking ship. And it ends up just being, hey, 5-on-1, which is tough to beat. What
You're
do
right,
you think about his future prospects?
well, I mean, let me go back to, Rome real quick. I think with I don't know. Like, the storyline that I'm getting with Rome is I have a theory that I'm just gonna say, I have a feeling that the red tribe to me seems like the tribe that is the least likely. I know you said you were feeling like blue tribe is
Mm,
really strong. To me, it's red tribe. Like I feel like red tribe is least likely to go to tribal council at least this early. The thing with Rome in particular is that I don't know what his best option is. Like I don't know, Phil. I don't know. I'm not in that position. I
It's
feel I want him to do well though. That's why I'm so torn.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, I also want him to do well, but I think that they say it all the time. I mean, a lot of times, like your first impression is going to dictate the way that you are understood for the rest of the game. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I don't want to hold us back too much, but even to talk about Asia, like how TK's perception of Asia after their head to head. That story made its way back to TK's tribe
Yes,
as he
it
says,
did.
"Oh, and she was wrestling me for this key, man. I got it at the end, but oh my gosh, I was like, don't you see that I have it?" Just him being able to tell a story afterwards that could put her in a light that's like, oh, she really is here to win. She did not stop when the buoy was in TK's arms. I just think that that same sentiment can be said for anyone. I think that Rome is in a place where, despite him being good for other people's games, I think that if the story is told that, hey, this guy is sneaky, keep your eye out for him, I feel like he could really mess him up later in the game.
I agree because also like it went to your point, let's say Rome makes it to that final 3. someone could ask the question of how could you say you did well socially when you spent the first couple of hours in this competition searching for advantages instead of getting to know your tribe mates? And like
Mhm.
they'll have to provide an answer to that. Actually, it's so funny you mentioned that thing about TK bringing the Asia story to his tribe, because I was thinking about this where I was like, if I were in Asia's position here and someone approached me later on in the merge when we're all getting together and asked me about that situation, I'd be like, if you were on my tribe, I would have done the same for you. Like if the roles were reversed, like I would have gotten that thing for you. But you know, TK beat me to it. So like I'm actually curious to see if it affects Asia's game moving forward too. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, yeah, I'm excited to see as well. I mean, I always find it really interesting when they have like when they include something that doesn't pay off yet, and you're like, why did they decide to put that in there? Again, I mean, we talked about it with Gabe. I mean, the tribe hearing this box roll down,
Oh,
despite not seeing him have any. There we go. Despite not seeing him have any consequence in this episode, I'm like, this has to come to something, right?
well, this was where it was so funny because like Sue's initial response, which I actually thought was pretty good, was, "Oh, he must be cutting something down." Like I was like, you know what, that pretty good. Being a watch person, but with Gabe in this moment, first of all, if Jam Jam was here, my biggest question was like, how big are their beaches? I'm not sure if this was Tika Beach, but like, how big are their beaches? Where is this in relationship to the um camp? Because like I want to know how loud this really was.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's hard to say. I think it was very clear that a lot of people heard it.
Yep.
I wonder, yeah, to your point, like, was it so faint that they were that no one wanted to get up and check? Like, I think that literally someone was like, "Oh, that didn't sound good," and then they all proceeded to just sit there. And I was like, "Are you guys not going to check on your like? What if he fell and was hurt? You know what I mean? Like, go out there and check on him."
That's true. That's wild. That's actually I didn't even consider that fact, but it is kind of like insane that no one went to go see what was up. And it also seemed like the
Wild.
perfect opportunity to go and check on Gabe. Anyway, this was funny, and it actually what was so interesting to me about this was that we got these sequences with Blue Tribe and Red Tribe. I will learn the tribe names soon. Give me like 3 episodes, everyone. But Red Tribe and Blue Tribe, we have these sequences of people finding advantages and stuff like that, but we get none of that with the Yellow Tribe, with Gata. And I wonder if them winning the first challenge made everyone feel a little bit more at ease, relaxed, feeling like they were less likely to lose the immunity challenge and therefore go home, therefore not having to look for advantages. I wonder if there was like a psychological element there.
I think that's a really good question. By the way, I am trying these AirPods out again. Let me
Yeah.
know if anything breaks. I'm putting them in very slowly. I think it's a really good point, Matthew. I think that the fact that I mean they are the only tribe that we did not see a mad scramble for. This is got something for you. I think that we are sort of the show where we are comfortable sort of swimming through the edit and
Hmm.
maybe questioning why producers might have made certain choices. The one thing that I can say is that perhaps they like for the other two tribes, they needed something more interesting for them. So they decided to put an idol find, maybe even if it didn't happen on the first couple days, and then maybe
Oh,
on the yellow tribe, they were like, we already have enough excitement, and this idol doesn't take place. And look, maybe they didn't have an idol search until later, and so they were like, oh, this is fine. But I wonder, yeah, like if it's one thing or the other, because it is strange that the tribe that goes to tribal council is the only tribe where there was not an idol find. Um, but hey, maybe Andy had all their heads spinning so much that they were like, "Look, we don't have the space to look for an idol,"
uh,
and I'm sure we will get to that as well. But
can
yeah,
you imagine if we just like didn't talk about Andy? Like this was I was on board with Andy. Like I actually like I didn't understand this equation at all, but I like the fact that he was able to say, you know what, with 6 people, there are 15 possible relationships, and all I need is to, he said, befriend 2 people. Is that right? To at least have two
yes,
people in his corner.
yes,
Not a bad strategy. Not bad thinking.
yeah. I don't know how to think about Andy. I think that I am. I'm just gonna just to lay it all out.
Okay. Okay.
I think that I see Andy as a more in touch with the game Banu. I think that he felt so scrambly. He felt very Lost Cause-esque, but he also seems to be the guy now, much like Banu in the beginning of the game, where it's like, oh, well, why are we going to focus on Banu right now when he is showing not just to our tribe, but to every tribe on this game that he is having a hard time. I don't know. I think the only difference is I mean, we know that he's a super fan of the game.
Yeah.
He definitely seems to know the game a little bit more, and the things that are bothering him seem very real. But I just think that the way that he's responding to it feels awful, like really, really bad. That we again, we'll press forward soon enough, but yeah, I think that he made a lot of really bad choices in this premiere.
I agree. I agree. And this was like the epitome of failing upwards. Like that's what it felt like to me when it came to Andy's decisions, Andy's gameplay. Minnows, interesting that you brought this up. You watched Millennials versus Gen X, and you wondered if Andy could sort of have this like David Wright turn and storyline. I have to admit, I kind of thought that was the storyline going for John, like before the season, because John's whole thing was when we were learning about John in the initial interviews and stuff, we learned that he deals with anxiety. We learned he said that thing in his interviews where it's worse for me than it is for you. He had that line. So I kind of felt like that was sort of going to be his storyline a little bit. I mean, we clearly find out that storyline got cut short, but we do see Andy and John sort of forming a little bit of a bond. They get to know some of each other's commonalities. They're kind of hitting it off. But it's it's interesting. Considering what happens later in the episode, like I do wonder like how strong their bond really got to at this point. Like seriously,
Right.
like, how connected were they in this moment?
Well, and if you recall, there is the one moment where you have Sam with all the women of the tribe talking about, wow, these two seem really close. We need to keep our eye out for them.
Right.
So the truth is, even before Andy had his whole moment at the at the mat after the immunity challenge, it seems like they already had their eyes on these two. So again, it becomes like a bit of like a chicken or the egg thing, where obviously, narratively speaking, it is shown to us that these two, whatever the moment at the tribe, at the mat after the immunity challenge, seems to have accelerated the Andy or John, sort of binary choice on the tribe. However, it clearly started a bit earlier, because these two were being seen as very threatening early on in the game, or at the very least, like, hey, they're coupling up, they're pairing up. We need to protect our half.
That's funny. There are so many people who I spoke to after the episode who said that they felt that the edit was weird, that it was edited to like they thought that John's upcoming elimination was completely out of left field. And did we watch the same episode? I was like, yes, it was shocking, and yes, it was a blindside, but especially on a rewatch, I was like, oh, I think that they laid those seeds very well throughout the entire episode.
Yeah, I think that people don't know how to talk about it to a certain extent, because I think that what people are experiencing is that the person who has all the tools to have done well in this game got voted off, which is uncomfortable for our brains to process and for us to understand as super fans, because we're like, John Lovett, I think that they are correct in saying that John Lovett did not make many mistakes in his game, but I think that him being voted off not being explained is the wrong way to put it. Because yes, I agree with you. I think that it is explained why he got voted off a bit. We see him at times not gelling perfectly. We see him being seen as a pair with Andy. And I think that we see him, I think this was his biggest fault. We see him being far and away the smartest and most well-spoken person on his tribe. And I think that was his biggest undertaking personally. And I've heard a lot of takes where it's like, oh, he's also the smallest on his tribe in terms of, being able to bring strength to the tribe. I'm sorry. I usually don't stop a monologue, but I have to. We have our very own Ollie in the chat. What's going on, Ollie? I miss you, my friend. I cannot wait to talk to you in a week.
Ollie's on vacation. Ollie's doing just fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's fine without us, but I'm happy he's decided to tune in. But yes, I think that it is explained like John went home, but I also think that it is uncomfortable for us to a certain extent because he didn't make some big overt mistake, and there is someone on his tribe that did make a big overt mistake in Andy, and he is still here. And I think a lot of people are wrestling with that in their brains.
And before we go any further, since we have Ollie here, I just want to make it very clear to everyone: Ollie chose John for his draft. So sorry, Ollie, about that. I'm expecting some messages very shortly. But I will say, with this, it was Andy. Especially, this is where Andy like really lost me. Minnows, I saw you mentioned Rachel. That John's, I believe what you're saying is John's blind side showed really well for Rachel. I agree with that. But seeing Andy, Rachel flat out said, "Do not approach me during the night, during the morning. We'll find other times to talk." And she is so completely right. She is so completely right. Honestly, this to me was like past gameplay, and I was like, this is just rude. This was just so rude.
This scene was very uncomfortable to watch.
Yeah.
It is very much. I mean, look, like I understand Andy to be a very big fan of the show. In case he watches this, I don't want, he's a young guy. He had a tough start. I hope that he does better moving forward. But I just have to keep it real. This is, the guy on Tinder that thought someone was cute and then ended up going to their Instagram and DMing them on Instagram and being like, "Hi, we met on Tinder." And the woman is like, "Sir, I have absolutely no clue who you are," because in their reality, they saw you on Tinder and just swiped left and never thought a second time about you. This was weird. I did not love this, and it is uncomfortable because it's tough. Once again, it's tough to sort of contextualize because you understand that Annie didn't mean anything bad by this. You know what I mean? I don't think that he meant to overtly disrespect Rachel's wishes per se, but it just to have this person who you already told, "Hey, let's like keep this pairing on the low if it is even a pairing," and he's shaking you up in the middle of the night to talk and have you comfort him, is just like very not good. It is just a bad look from every angle.
This was like, honestly, out of everything that Andy did during this episode, even though we're going to talk about like what was very obviously like such a bad game move, this to me was like the worst thing. Like, again, like you said, he was trying to build a relationship with Rachel. There has to be compromise there. If Rachel says, "Please do not bother me in the morning or the night," like, right, like we have to build our alliance a little bit more. We can't make it too obvious. Respect that. This just felt really off to me. Georgette found that you thought John of all people was planning on calling it, could have questioned if he really wanted to be there. That's interesting. I didn't get that from John.
Yeah, I didn't pick that up either. I will say I did see it sort of talked about on another podcast that they were. I did see some questioning about this somewhere else, but I personally, I did not see it. I did not see it. I thought that he took this very seriously, and I thought that he very much wanted to do well. And I felt that even in him thinking that he was in a bad place, he did not roll over and die. He like was very, very active in trying to pull himself out of a bad space. And I think that what can maybe even more easily be argued, but this is just what I see. I think that maybe what can even more easily be argued is that he did too much to pull himself out of a bad place than he needed to post immunity challenge, but we'll get to that. But look, I think it's an interesting take. I always love to hear what people think. And maybe I'll go back and take a second look.
Yeah, it is interesting, especially to consider that. I mean, thank you for bringing that up, Georgette, because I am curious to go back and kind of see what that vibe is. Before we go to commercial break, before we talk about the immunity challenge and everything that follows, Amy says, from confessionals and demeanor, is anyone getting Franny vibes from Rachel? It looks like Minnows agrees with that. That's interesting. I definitely have my eye on Rachel. I will say, like, Rachel definitely stuck out to me in like the best possible way. Like, wasn't quite front and center, wasn't quite like the main character of the episode, but was definitely there and definitely active and definitely in the edit.
Yeah, I was a big fan of Rachel. I honestly just I feel like at every quarter I liked her takes in confessional. I like that she, was like, what is this guy doing? Waking me up and taking me out in the middle of the night where everyone saw us go to talk to one another. Like, this is bad. I think that every single one of her takes in confessional to me was ringing true to what I was seeing on the show. So I'm excited to see her play forth.
I agree. And we're going to talk a little bit more about her gameplay right after this commercial break. And then we're going to talk about the immunity challenge. But first, let's hear about Todd's Funko Pops.
What's up, guys? I'm Todd Herzog, the winner of Survivor China, and I am here with Survivor Now Podcast, the best source for Survivor information, to show off what I do for a living. So I make custom Funko Pops. If you haven't seen or heard, you can check it out on Instagram at Todd's Pop Shop, or you can message me, toddspopshop@gmail.com, to order your own. And if you mention this podcast, you will get $10 off and a free torch. So it's pretty freaking awesome. I'm going to show you a few right now. We've got Troyzan here, Phil from The Amazing Race, JLP, host of Australian Survivor, and look, little Charlie. Anybody you could possibly imagine or want yourself playing an LRG or an ORG, or just with your loved one or family or pets or anything like that, shoot me a message. I'm happy to make it. You also have the chance to win a free custom pop if you sign up for Survivor Now Podcast Fantasy League. So it's pretty awesome. And it's fun. Like, who doesn't want to be a part of that? So yeah, hit me up. Get your custom pops. It's great holiday gifts, great birthday gifts. We got a new season of Survivor right around the corner. I'm excited. I'm sure you're excited. Let's get this going.
I like how he said little Charlie. I love it. We love Todd. Such a great business he's got going on. Let's talk about, we were talking about Funko Pops. Let's talk about these immunity idol designs here. What's interesting to me about these ones is that for the first time, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Phil, but it seems like, how do I explain this? It seems like these are very equal statues, whereas there, people would get pieces of just one idol, or in past seasons there would be like a more like, this is the first place idol and this is the second place idol.
I agree. From just like a quick think back in my head here, I think that is I think it's a proper take. Yeah, I think that that usually there's something that is distinguishing first place from second place when we are in the sort of 3-tribe format of the game. That said, look, I don't miss it. I like these. These are cute. I'm into it. I simply like that they, they're obviously living in the same theme. It matches the tribal council theme.
Yes.
And I'm digging the synergy. I like it. And I'm excited to hopefully see more of these.
Yeah. And I will say, I like it more, to Minnow's point. Like, there was that bird one that was just someone got the bird head and then the other type got the bird base. And I was like, I don't like that.
I didn't like that either. I was like, well, what are we doing here? Let's give him an idol. Okay.
You know what I really love, Phil? Not only are those, we have those like mud challenges that we talked about, but I love a good old fashioned race through the water. And this was so much fun to me. I had so much fun watching this.
I'm excited to talk about this challenge. Okay. I'm excited to talk about this challenge. I personally think this challenge did not play out the way that they thought that it would.
Really?
Yes.
I thought the opposite, but please.
I'm interested to hear your take on it. I think that they wanted it's so interesting, right? I think that part of the challenge was simply getting these 3 enormous treasure chests into this tiny dingy little boat. It was like very. At a certain point as a viewer, I think I remember them getting their second treasure chest, and I was like, surely they only have to get two, right? Because like three of them barely fit on there without people on there. I mean, look, I know that they test challenges. You know they test challenges. I think that most super fans know this.
Yeah.
So I imagine they must have seen it at some point work like this. So I guess maybe they did know it was going to work like this. It just blows my mind that they knew that there was going to be this much struggle around simply getting the chests on. And there we go. Once you flip over, it's so hard to get back into the challenge. I don't know. I want to know what you thought. I thought like at a certain point, I was like, are either of these tribes going to get second? Because I feel like it is like disaster world out there. Like capsized, they can't get the water out. Now the ships are sinking even when they're back in the boat. It was tough. But I liked it. I liked the struggle. I liked it. But
I did too, because it was very fun. And even being at the live watch party, there were tons of reactions to the boats flipping over. But like maybe I just feel like the creative team might have had some nefarious intent with this, because I saw this as like, oh, this is television gold. Let's just make this impossible challenge. And we saw this challenge. We talked about it before, where there are some challenges where they might not, the way that they're edited and the way that they are presented may not seem like so much effort, but in reality, they are a lot of effort. This one to me seemed absolutely exhausting for all of these reasons.
Oh yeah, you could see it. You could see it right from home how challenging this challenge seemed. I mean, like I'm definitely with you there. I mean, look at this photo. A full tribe literally off the boat that is capsized. They're trying to flip it back over, but you see that it is, a quarter still in the water. So there's obviously going to be water that gets into the boat. I felt bad for them at a certain point, and I'm genuinely serious. There are very few challenges where I sit there and I go, oh my god, I feel bad for these survivors. This one did not look fun. I think that it was more fun to watch at home than it probably was to participate in it. This one looked tough. Matthew. This one looked tough. But
like
on
paper, I'd be like, oh yeah, sign me up for this one. But actually seeing it play out, Minos, this is an interesting point here. I don't know how much they'd want to risk. Do you mean risk the boats tipping? Because I thought in 42, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought 42 was the one where it was like just the way the water was moving at that point, too many big waves. But I could be wrong about what season that was. But also the fact that these things were floating in there, like honestly, I have no idea how anyone got those things back onto the boat.
Oh my god, yeah, it looked like a struggle. But honestly, kudos to the fact that two teams did clinch it out. I'm literally surprised.
Yeah. And I will say there was something, Phil, that maybe it wasn't that it made me feel that the intention of the challenge was ruined, but I will say I was so confused as to how all of a sudden we went to, Red Tribe won. They won.
Yeah, I think I mean, look, I think it really spoke to the fact that they were in their own world over there in puzzle universe, because the other two tribes were still trying to figure out how to get their puzzle pieces onto the shore. I mean, it was a blowout for this first tribe, an absolute blowout.
Right, but it's like we may have seen them start it, but it just felt so unsurvivory to me that there wasn't that typical buildup. You know what the one I'm talking about.
I absolutely know the one you're talking about. But this is the thing, right? I mean, look, let's we've got the Survivor Challenge playing here. If Jeff is over here calling the water challenge, and the puzzle is all the way over here, the man can't be in two places at once. I mean, at the end of the day. Look, I'm sure there were cameras there, but I think that he just wasn't calling it. I think that he had his eyes on these two tribes in the water, and he wasn't calling the puzzle at all. And simply to see them, doing the puzzle with no commentary, maybe they were like, hey, let's make it very clear that, like, hey, the focus was on these two in the water, and meanwhile, the red tribe was just they figured it out.
I mean,
it was strange. It was strange. I will say. Yeah, it was strange. There's
It
no
it
question
seemed
about that.
it surprised Jeff. Like, it did. It when Jeff, like, did a double take and then said, "Oh, red
He's like,
red
"Oh."
wins." Like,
Right. He's like, "Oh my god, they're done. Okay, well, shoot. Yeah, they're done."
yeah. I agree with you, Minnows. I also missed it because I think I looked down at my phone to, like, post something to our Survivor Now podcast Instagram, which, by the way, you should all follow if you're on Instagram. And they just won. And I was like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah.
But also, I will just say, there was a part of me, which it feels so unlikely for Survivor, but there was a part of me that says, did they just miss getting that footage? And
Hmm.
that will just be in the back of my mind because it just seems so.
I am going to confidently say no.
I know we've seen the behind the scenes.
Yes, they have so many cameras out there, so many cameras. I think that there is no way that they don't have any shots of them doing the puzzle. Frankly, I'll even put it this way, right? I mean, the puzzle took some time. Even if they had started and they were like, okay, let's, oh my God, we forgot about this. Let's reposition some cameras back there and get the shot. I think there's no way that they miss all of it. That said, I'm with you. It was definitely strange to see that they did not even comment on it at all, and they were just like, okay, how about we just focus on these two tribes in the water? It's very interesting to speculate about.
Okay, at least I'm not alone in that because it did feel weird. Amy, this is interesting, and maybe we could talk about this real quick. But, like, why don't we do split screens on Survivor? To me, I feel like it could be very overwhelming. Like, I feel like it would just be a lot to take in as a viewer, but I do see situations where it could be applicable. I think that they do this. I think they do split screens in their own way by framing two people doing a challenge, usually more so in the individual portion of the game. But, like, we've never had, at least I don't think, we've never had, like, red tribe on this side of the screen, blue tribe on this side of the screen.
Yeah, we haven't. I think that it might just be like an editing convention that they don't want to break. That said, I think that, look, we've seen it many times before. The first time they break a convention, they are happy to do it over and over and over again. They used to not have these packages of each contestant with photos from before they went out there, childhood photos, flashbacks to their family. They used to never have that. Now it is a little bit par for the course. Same thing. The first time they did non-linear editing, I'll never forget it, was with Hot Cop Dan and David versus Goliath when he found the idols, and then they cut back to it, and they had him in a confessional being like, "But I have the idol. It's right here." And they cut back to it. They had never done that once for decades before they did it for David versus Goliath. So all it takes is, and point being, they've done it since then. So I think that all it takes is breaking the convention once for them to be like, hey, audience was okay with it. They liked it. It wasn't too jarring for them. But I do think them, breaking a bunch of editing conventions that they've had for literally decades, like, yeah, I think it would be a little bit jarring all at once. But hey, let's get a little bit of split screens in there. That could be fun. That could be cool.
I trust them. Like, I do trust that the creative team and the producers and editors, like, I trust that if there is need for a split screen, they will do it. Like, if they see the purpose for it to highlight something, to tell the story, like, I do feel like they would take the opportunity to. But it is interesting. Like, I did not know that fun fact about David versus Goliath. That's a great little piece of Survivor trivia there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they win, but the big headline of this challenge is what happens with Andy.
Lord
and
Jesus.
We do see that Andy gets overheated, and it just unravels from there. Like, I don't even know where to begin with this. And well, let me just say, I empathize with him. Like, it's not good to be in this situation where overheating is definitely a factor and is definitely something to be taken seriously. But there's a lot that comes out of this.
Yes. Now look, I same thing. I want to make sure that I'm being, sensitive to the fact that, to your point, yeah, like this is not an easy game. This is not an easy show. You know what I mean? But I also don't believe that he was brought out there in handcuffs. He signed up for this, and he knew what to expect. I don't think that this was a case of him simply overheating. I actually think that this was a bit of an anxiety attack. I think that he was watching his tribe start to fall out of this challenge, and he realized more and more quickly, holy crap, I could be going to tribal council and I am on the outs. I am freaking out and now I am overheating. You know, much like my mom, having, you know, uh, a heat flash when we're playing Uno and she realizes that she's about to lose the game. I think that that is what happened here with Andy. Obviously, I'm being a little bit jokey and tongue in cheek and facetious, but like, I think that this was a panic attack, man. I think that this was like, even when Jeff went over to him, the first thing he said was not, "Oh my god, I cannot breathe. Oh my god, I'm too hot." He said, "They don't like me. They're going to vote me out." This dude had a severe panic attack. And I mean, look, like that's not to talk down on it. Like panic attacks are very scary. Like panic attacks are very they feel very real and they can be dangerous because it can make you lose your breath. I'll remember I had an allergy attack at a gym once, and I had never had an allergy attack in my life. And I felt my face swelling up, and I was like, "Oh my god, I clearly need to get out of here. I need to go to the hospital." But it was not until I looked at myself in the mirror and saw what I looked like, my face all swollen up, my eyes were swollen, my cheeks were swollen, that I started to have shortness of breath because of a panic attack now. And it was now layered. But my shortness of breath did not come from my allergies. My shortness of breath came from my panic. And so I think that's what happened to our friend Andy over here. I think that he simply started to panic when he saw his team falling out of a challenge, when he thought that he might be going home. And all of a sudden, he's on the ground. I gave everything, Jeff. These people don't like me. They're going to vote me off. He didn't say anything about, "Oh my god, I'm hot. Oh my god, I can't breathe. Oh my god, I need medical." He was worried about being voted off. That is my thought.
You're right.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it. We again, neither myself nor Phil were there, right? Like we don't know if anything. We do know that they gave him water. We do know that they, I think, gave him a blanket. Minnows agrees with you, Phil. And Amy, I just saw your note about the rewind button, and that's what rewind is for. That was very funny. And by the way, this note about Andy being off of social media, that's good. I hope that there's no reason to give Andy hate. Like
No.
Andy has given no we're talking about Andy in the game, and that's a big factor, right? Is seeing Andy's gameplay and what happens over the course of the episode. But there was nothing in this episode. There was nothing that warrants giving Andy or any other player hate on social media. So we're gonna get back to this. I agree. This clear, even if heat was a factor, there was clearly an element of panic in here as well, and anxiety as well. I thought Jeff's reactions were interesting. We talked about Bonnie before. Jeff's reactions to Andy kind of seemed like, I feel like I just went through this. Jeff was like, "Okay, yeah, they haven't voted you out yet." Like it was very like matter of fact and to the point.
Yeah, Jeff seemed annoyed. In a word, Jeff seemed annoyed. I think that he was like, "I need to be calling this challenge. Should I be stopping this? Are you okay?" I mean, we had Lauren O'Connell fall out in a challenge, literally pass out and faint. And, that I think that, Andy, again, I say this with love, Andy, I think wanted that same visual, but did not have the severity to what he was actually in real life going through. And I think that Jeff was like, "Dude, pull yourself together. I have a challenge to call." Frankly, I really do. And I think that yes, I think that immediately Jeff was very, very worried. Hey, are you okay? Are you just chilling out, or do you need medical? Are you okay?
Yeah,
Do you
that
need
check-in.
something? Yes. And so kudos to him. He's a great, he did not shove this aside. However, I think that at a certain point he was like, "Dude, Andy, you're fine."
Let me also be clear. Although there were things that I really empathized with Andy on, and we'll get more into that when he starts talking. But Amy, Minnows, thank you so much. We try. It's not that we try hard. It's just like I think have an understanding that these people are putting themselves out there on this island. They are filmed in like the worst of environments, and they're giving us a show to be entertained by. So we really try to keep that in mind as we do our coverage. So I really appreciate that note.
And if I can add, Matt, I mean, we are fans speaking on fans.
Yes.
Like at this point, almost everyone that is playing Survivor is a fan. And I will say what I respect about Andy is that he has not he did not, and to this point has not quit the game. And in fact, he has a line during Tribal that, it took a while to get a favorite line from Andy for me. However, at Tribal, he said a line that really made me be like, dude, I like this guy, Andy. And he said, I don't remember the exact quote, but he said something of, I am not ready to sit here and tell everyone to vote for me.
Yep.
I had a rough day. I do not plan to sit here and let myself get voted off. And that's all I ask for out of these contestants is give it your all. You signed up to be on this show. Again, you were not brought here in handcuffs. I just want to see you give it your all. And for what it's worth, look at the caption on this screenshot. Kudos to Andy. I mean, truly. He's literally sitting there being like, I gave everything, Jeff. That's what he's there to do. So I don't blame the kid. I simply am here to talk about what I saw. And I did see that Jeff seemed a bit annoyed.
Yeah, there we go. And I think that this moment was hard to watch. But again, this is where if we took the game out of this, if we took the situation, if we took the cameras out of this, I completely understood Andy, because what I was hearing was a person who we got to know Andy at the beginning of the episode, and Andy on the mat talks about how for years he tried looking like a stoner, even though he is afraid of the medicinal herb. We get to know that Andy has struggled with sort of finding his identity. And with that, I can imagine for Andy and for a lot of people, again, I can only speak to my experience here too, where I felt that, where I was just like, especially going through high school, middle school, school in general, when you're in these social groups and you see that this group is more friendly and more together, you're kind of there, but like, that they're closer to each other than they are to you. That's what I felt was going with Andy. And he also talked about something that really resonated with me, which when he talked about, he felt like he was reverting. Like he was like, I wanted to come onto the show to show people who I am now and that I am capable to take on this challenge. And when I got here, I just noticed that I was reverting back to, I forget how he put it, but I think the idea was that he was reverting back to past behaviors or past feelings that did not mix well with the game of Survivor. So that part, I totally applaud him for sharing this, because I actually think that it will resonate with so many people. I'm taking that part away, and then there's the strategy point to this.
Right. And look, I will say, I think, if you listen to Andy in confessionals in the beginning of the game before he got a little insecure in his standing, I think that, just that idea of reverting back, I do think it's like literally interesting. I think that he is so well spoken. He seems to be so gathered in his early confessionals. And I think that the second that he starts to feel as though he's not in the in, it is very clear that to the point of like literally the word reverting, I say this just because I think it's the best word to use to describe it. I actually think that his reaction to it was a little bit childish. And to that point, I think that revisiting, right? He's literally back to where he was when he was a child, feeling left out, he literally said, the popular, I'm not popular, I just think even the terms he was using, I was like, this is not school anymore. There's not, I think that, but I think that he was experiencing feelings that he probably has not felt since he was in that setting. And so it's tough to hear him talk about it, because it did, I do think there was a part of me that's like, oh, come on, Andy, you got to deal with this better. But there is another part that is, yes, obviously empathetic, because I think that everyone has felt this to different extremes.
And again, I think it got to a point where all of a sudden I felt that he just couldn't stop sharing. There was no filter. And I appreciate that he shared this, but I think at some point we all felt like Tiana here, and we were like, all right, like let's pump the brakes a little bit, Andy. it got way too far. It just from a game perspective,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was really
Yeah,
fun to watch.
yeah, and again, I mean, like, not to, spoil my sort of thoughts about what is to come in this season, but I can I've said it before, I've compared him already to Banu. I can see a Banu arc for him where there is an interest to keep him along, but then if he continues to act like this, I think that there is a very strong shot that they are going to reach a point of no return where it is, look, like, we want to keep him around because he's not that threatening, but at this point he is a detriment to our game because he keeps behaving in ways that um is impossible to gather.
Yeah. Actually, what's curious to me is that it just jumping to the next time on Survivor at the end of this episode, it
Hmm.
seems like Andy brings Sam a piece of information. So I'm curious to know what that is, and I'm curious to like see like, okay, has Andy worked through it now that he has survived a tribal council? Like, are we going to see an evolution?
If I can also call out a line from the preview, he is also compared to a toxic ex-boyfriend that won't leave you alone. So again, I think that it all comes down to what you're focusing on. I think that people are going to, much like Banu, hang on for as long as they think they can, but then it's going to get to a point where it's like, look, the risks outweigh the benefits.
Yeah,
And I
I
believe
did
it
forget about
was,
that moment.
yeah, yeah. So again, very much like Banu, he was bringing information, but he also was a liability. So
Yeah. And I mean, let's face it, he flat out says, I was going to throw John under the bus in front of all 17 other castaways.
yeah.
I was going to throw John under the bus, who at this point, let us remind everyone, they were kind of seen as the duo on that tribe.
Mhm.
So, not really sure how he was planning on doing that, to be honest. I'm not sure if it was in the context of John's challenge performance or something else, but I was just like, I was really surprised. I was really surprised.
Yeah. I tell you what.
Well, this
That's it.
bleed. I'll tell
That's
you
what I'm
what.
telling you. Yes. that
This
is that is me agreeing.
God, gotcha. This was definitely bleeds into the conversations at camp, right? Because everyone's talking about Andy, and I forget exactly what the conversation is here, but I think this is where John is sort of voicing his frustration about what happened on the mat. But interesting enough, I think John didn't do himself any favors with how he answered Jeff's question on the mat about his reaction to Andy, because I think it was a little too diplomatic in a way. And
Hmm.
I think I feel like John needed to be, even if he didn't feel it, I think he needed to appear to be more bothered by this. Like
I agree.
he seemed a little too relaxed about this, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, very similarly, I think that in this conversation here, and again, it becomes so tough because, especially hearing John's exit interviews, I mean, in this conversation they were telling him, like, it is Andy, but he believes that in this conversation, despite what they were telling him, it was not Andy yet, at least.
Well,
And so
no, I was
I
just
just
we have to give it. We have to say because they said, "Well, it is going to be Andy," but John, we're going to tell Andy it's you, and that's
right, right. And it's tough because they're like, to the women's credit, I think that it's like, that is probably the most believable decoy vote to throw out.
right.
However, to John's credit, it's like, that is, you never want your name to be the decoy vote because it is so easy for it to become the real vote. And he's now sitting here, he's questioning even after the fact if it ever even was a decoy vote or if it was the real vote all along. So, I really feel for John this episode. I understand that there are people that, obviously there are people that really feel for Andy this episode. There are people, I really feel for John this episode. I think that he did not do anything overtly wrong in this episode. I think that it is simply like a personality thing. aspect, and I really think that it's less about people not liking him, and I think it's more about him. He comes across like a threat, man. Just the way that he speaks about the game, the way that he, to your point, like his response to Andy in, with seconds of preparation of time to prepare was so poignant and against what you would expect someone to respond after they throw you under a bus for him to, if he just turned around
Yeah.
and said, "Oh, dude, forget you. Hey, I'm going to say it right here on the mat. I'm voting for Andy. We don't even need to have strategy talk when we go out. I'm voting for Andy. Like, this is ridiculous. Do we really want to play with someone like this?" Like, he could have done something like that. And I think that him coming across so poised actually hurt him. It's just like, oh, okay, this guy, like, he's just going to keep doing this the whole game until he wins,
Yes.
and it becomes the thing where it's like, why don't let's just get it off right now. What are we waiting for?
And well, I mean, you said there wasn't anything that John did wrong, and I agree with that. However, that's kind of what the problem was.
Overtly, yes,
Overtly.
exactly, yeah.
Yes. Overtly. That was kind of what the issue was here.
Right.
Minnows, you know what's interesting, Minnows? I think that they didn't mention it because it wasn't used. And I feel
Mhm.
like when it does get used, they will sort of build up what the shot in the dark is before tribal.
And to tack on to that, not only was it not used, it's not used, and at this point in Survivor culture, it is understood. Because I think that for a while, despite it not being used, they wanted to mention it so that they had because it was a new device in the game. They wanted to make sure that the audience remembered that it was there, that we understood what it was in the first place. I think that on season 47, where it's been in the game now for a bit, I think that they don't feel the need to remind us, hey, this thing is out there. Hey, this is how it works. It's just like, okay, we understand.
And Minnows, I do agree. Like, I do think they absolutely have to explain it before it gets used. But I trust them that they will build it. It would just be weird to introduce it in this episode only for it to not become a thing. Because then you want people to tune in to the next one, and then they'll have to remind everyone. But I agree. I think John did bring in a much wider audience, and we'll see how the numbers do based on this premiere. But to go just game wise, just to refresh everyone's memory, John did not like what he heard here. Right? He heard Andy's the real vote, but my name is out there too. So I do think that he did a very logical thing in trying to say, all right, Andy, let's get the votes off of both of us. Let's do it. Let's get the votes off of both of us. Neither one of us has to worry. And he gets Andy to say who he would like out. And Andy says Annika. So that becomes the thing. And they try bringing in Sam to therefore, who are they trying to reach? It was to get Sam involved. And then they were trying to get one other person involved through Sam.
Right. I believe it might have been Rachel.
You think Rachel? Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, it's tough. It's so tough because I think that this play was like, to your point, I think that it was quite ingenious. I think it was really smart. But I think that they're not looking at him as, oh my God, this is some not capable man. And him showing that he's able to make a play is like, wow, maybe this guy is worth our time. The worry about John was always that, hey, is he going to be better than all of us at this? And is he going to just walk us to the finals and beat us? And that being the main drive of possibly getting him out, and then him being able to coming to Sam with this awesome play. I'm sure Sam was sitting there like, yeah, dude, what, like, this is a good idea. And that's exactly why I need to vote you off. Also, obviously there is a just like objective, a bit of an objective mistake here, but I don't think that he could have really known how close Sam is with these women, right? We know that we got the scene early on where while John was bonding with Andy, the other four were talking about like, hey, let's just make this easy. The four of us, let's stick together. Yeah. John did not know about that. So it's him coming to Sam was a mistake.
I agree. I do agree. I don't even think I get why John did it, but unless you feel so confident, maybe he did, but unless you feel so confident about the relationships you've built and who you think you are working with, don't even engage. Don't even try to introduce this thing, because let's say it was Andy. Let's say the vote truly was Andy. The moment, Here's the other thing. I just thought of this. I forget how it played out in the episode, so someone in the comments, let me know. But was it Andy the one who introduced the plan to vote Annika off to Sam, or was it John who was the one to introduce it to Sam? Because I feel like that actually would make a huge difference.
Right, you're saying was it John or Andy? I do not remember. I do not remember.
Yeah.
I think, but if I'm going to be honest, personally, I am not sure that that would make the biggest difference.
Okay.
I think that, honestly, look, I think that Sam was looking at John and Andy as being the two potential people that he was going to be voting off. And he now has Andy and John walking up to him, trying to pitch him something. And he's like, what are you doing? It's between you two for me. So the fact that you two are,
No, to your point, that's exactly what I'm saying. Well, to John's case, because Minos is saying that John said it to Sam. But if Andy had been the one to pitch it, yes, absolutely, it was always between John and Andy. But do you think it would have been beneficial to John? You always thought it would be John?
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think it plays out the same way, if I'm being
Yeah?
honest. Yes.
Okay.
Because I think that that's the thing. I mean, in this scenario, John coming up with this plan, it's like you're actually listening to it and you're going, okay, look, you're doing a lot of plotting and scheming. I already saw you as a threat. I'm also not getting, personality wise, I think that I'm getting along with the women more than I'm getting along with you. It's just not really, it's not buying you anything. If Andy says it, it's okay, this guy is out of his mind. He just had this whole episode at the mat and now he's trying to pitch a plan. Screw that. I'm going with the women. I think no matter what, it was either you're coming across too threatening, or what are you, out of your mind? You just had this giant episode. I'm going with people that are more stable and more stable, but I also don't feel like they are just. I mean, yeah, right there. John is a speechwriter. John is a speechwriter, and I think that was like very much in the forefront of his behavior from the time that these people met him to the time that they voted them off. So it's tough. It's tough. I don't think that it would have made too much of a difference. There we go. Even in his last remark to Jeff, it's like this poetic, lyrical, burn bright and fast. I mean, slow it down, John. Slow it down.
Confirmed it. That confirmed it for me. If I was on that tribe and I voted out John and I had any question in my mind if that was the right move or not, that just confirmed it. And
I even think that it was confirmed talking at tribal. I mean, even just I love how they zoomed in on his fingers as he was sort of, it almost seemed like he looked like a poet, man. He was doing this and sort of truly riddling. He looked like the Riddler, It was very impressive to watch, but it led to him being first boot, and I understand why.
Were you surprised it was 5-1?
Yes.
Me too.
I was. I will say, despite me believing that there was a chance, Randy, you're too kind. Despite me thinking that there was a very real chance that he goes home, I did not think that it was going to be a full majority, a unanimous vote, if you will, considering the only vote not on him was John's vote.
Well, you made a point before, Phil, where you said, like, in that conversation with the women and John, and they were saying, like, oh, the vote's on Andy, but we're going to say it's you. I kind of like the idea that maybe it was already decided that it was going to be John, and that was the alternative plan that the episode was trying to pass on as the real plan. That might not have been what you were saying, but that's kind of the idea that I got from it. Where, like, when did Andy know to write John? Unless Andy just decided to, out of pure luck, try it.
I don't think it was luck, but I do think that there was probably just a conversation that we were not shown.
But it's interesting they would choose to fill Andy in. That's what's interesting to me. They don't need to.
But this is the thing. I think they do need to. Did you see what the heck happened on that tri-mat? They didn't even leave him out of anything. They didn't clap for him opening a freaking coconut, and he had a meltdown. You think that they can go on with a plan without telling him and expect him to be okay? I think that they needed to let him in on this.
Really?
If they were not going to be voting him off, they absolutely needed to let him in on this, or else he would have Well, he would have gone full Jatia and spilled the rice in the fire. I mean, come on. Ugh.
Wow.
He
Okay.
had that whole episode at Matthew.
I'm
He
still
had
not
that whole
convinced.
episode at the mat. What prompted that? Let me ask you questions.
Well, first of all, Amy, we are color coordinated. It was completely unintentional, but it's really cool.
This is true.
Good call out.
If I can instead maybe prompt you with questions, I mean, like what big thing happened that made that meltdown at the tribe mat? What explained that?
It was Andy feeling excluded from the rest of the tribe.
Feeling left out. There was nothing that actually truly objectively happened that like really could point to that. I think that them leaving him out of a vote would have been a catastrophe for that tribe. He did not know how to process not having someone clap for him opening a coconut when they clapped for John. For them to very literally in the real life leave him out of a vote, I think he would have lost his mind.
But I'm like, why would he believe that? Because with the coconut thing, and as an example too,
Well, this is the thing. I don't think he had a choice to believe or not. I think that in
he
his
still could have
head,
voted for Annika.
look, I think that in his head, Andy was going home and he was going to write down the last name he heard.
Wow. Yeah,
He thought he was going home before he thought he was going home.
I mean,
Or rather, he thought he was going home before anything happened. So, with things actually moving and shaking and happening, I think that he was it was tough.
Let's see though. Let's see how we got to this point. Hopefully they sort of give us some more detail at the beginning of the next episode. Phil, I completely forgot we have a whole nother section to go through, which is called The Tribe Has Posted.
Let's breeze through it.
There's really one thing here that I want to talk about, and we'll talk about that real soon. Ooh, look at that budget.
How about that? Wait, I love that. I was not even prepared. I was moving around. Look, I brought you closer. We're getting intimate now.
Right. There's only one thing here that I really wanted to show everyone, and this is what I was talking about at the very beginning of this episode. So Sue posted this on Instagram, which I actually took a photo of this exact same thing. This was one of the commercials that we saw. So this is why I'm saying be careful of those commercials. I don't know what's going on in that edit bay, but this was a Survivor 47 commercial where you can clearly see Sue walking with one of those immunity idols. And I actually, for those of the Survivor Now podcasters who wanted to know this, we talked about it a little bit, and it was just wild that actually made it into a commercial. That's the one thing I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, that should not be. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Thank God I did not notice that. That is. Tonight's the night. Wow, that's insane. I genuinely, again, I mean, you all know that I'm probably the least on social media out of the three main cast of Got Something For You here. That blows my mind that made it to air. That's like so confusing.
I know. I can't explain it.
It's clear as day.
Phil, here's the sad thing. I have heard a rumor. I can't confirm nor deny this, but I have heard a rumor that there are other spoilers sprinkled throughout the commercials. So everyone be careful. And again,
keep me out of it.
Keep us out of it. And you know what, if I'm so sorry if it does happen to you, I'm so sorry. Try not to look into it too much, but I do ask that if it does happen to you, and same thing, I will do the same thing. Try not to spoil it for anyone else. It's unfortunate that it is happening. But the only other thing that I wanted to talk about was Rome posted some memes about like how far he had to put his body into that water. And then I like this is what Jeff means by dig deep, right?
I love it. I'm telling you right now, I love Rome. And what I think Rome can be helped by is sort of what I said before, right? I think a lot of people's perceptions of their counterparts in the game, a lot of times it starts and is forever colored by the very first sort of reputation that is placed, right? Yes, the Red Tribe has a very off-colored sort of reputation for Rome. I think he looks a little schemy. He looks like a guy who's searching and hunting for idols. However, the other tribes, I don't think that they see him like that. So I think that there is room for him to grow throughout the game, and I really hope that he just makes it to a point where he can do that.
Me too. I want to see more of him. I really like having him on my screen. But with
Same.
that, Phil, this time went by entirely too quick. I just noticed how we've been talking for like over an hour and 30 minutes. First of all, I think we should just thank the people who stuck with us since the very beginning. Thank you so much.
True.
Really
The
appreciate
real
you spending your
troopers.
time. Truly, 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 truly. And Ollie is correct. There is a rumor that Ollie will be back to Got Something For You for week 3, episode 3. So we look forward to having you back, Ollie, but have fun on your vacation. Until then, Phil, any last comment you would like to say before we sign off?
I'm excited to see our friend Ollie in week 3. I'm excited to see more Survivor, and cheers to a new season. I'm so stoked.
I think that's the perfect place to leave it. Have a great week, everyone, and we hope to see you next Saturday for another Got Something For You.
Goodbye, y'all.